Hi, today is Tuesday, October 2nd, which means since it was Tuesday, the science section of the New York Times was there, so that's exciting. That's always the best part. And the article I read this week that I found interesting was Misconduct Widespread in Retracted Science Papers Study Finds. And obviously this is an interesting topic for me since I would like to be a researcher. And basically it's talking about how there's this large increase in the number of papers retracted from scientific journals, and that previous studies have suggested that, it's mostly honest errors, but then lately there's been deeper analysis, and they're saying, 75% of the papers that they could actually figure out the reason for retraction were actually due to misconduct, such as falsifying or fabricating data. And this is upsetting to me, because the whole point of science to publish research is to further our knowledge on such topics. And by falsifying and fabricating data, we're doing exactly the opposite of what science is trying to achieve here. We want to spread knowledge and let people be aware of the truths, or what we think to be the truths of our world. And, you're putting unsupported information out into the world, and you're not furthering the knowledge of anything. And in fact, you're probably wasting some other scientist's time, because they might be saying, oh, okay, well then I'm going to try to replicate this study, or I'm going to try to add this extra component to this study and continue. And then they're like, oh, I can't replicate this. This is weird. And I mean, while replication doesn't always happen under certain studies, and that means that there's usually a problem, if you knowingly are putting this data out here and you're like, hey, I think that this, or my data supports this, and then someone was wasting their time when you never had support for that anyway, that's wrong, and that makes me mad. So obviously, you can tell I'm very passionate about this subject, and it is something I know a little about. In fact, in Research Methods a couple weeks ago, we were talking about this one guy who, was examining these articles and was looking at the statistics, and he was like, these standard deviations are weirdly evenly apart, which doesn't typically happen in groups. Like, your standard deviations aren't going to be like the same for every group. That's weird. So, this guy was examining this, and he calls the guy out, and he's like, could I see your data? Like, your raw data, I don't really, see how this is possible. And so this guy was calling, he called one guy out, and then he called another guy out, and these articles are being magically retracted. And, that's what we need. We need people like that in this world who are going to say, actually, that's not how science works. You don't just make up data. No, not okay. So, obviously, this whole article is about research, and it's research about research that's being put out into the world, and a group of researchers felt passionately enough about this to get together and analyze reasons for retractions. And one guy in this article argues that the statistic, while it's true, we need to keep it into proportion here and say, only about 1 in 10,000 papers in PubMed, which is, from what I understand, a medical journal, were actually retracted for misconduct, and that 112,908 were actually edited later on. But then this other guy says, hey, this is a really big problem in science right now. Retractions are happening more and more, and misconduct is happening because publication is so essential and can be the difference, quote, be the difference between heading a lab and facing unemployment. So people get desperate, and they say, hey, I need tenure. Let me just throw this research out there. And it's sad, and it's a real problem in science right now, and until there's a better check and balance system, I don't foresee it getting any better. I mean, people get desperate. If you're working at a big research university, you're getting, like we talked about in class today, you're getting closer to tenure. It's like, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do. I'm not saying it's okay, and I really frown upon this, obviously, and it really upsets me, but people get desperate and they do desperate things. So, and lastly, in order to follow up on this article, it actually links the actual journal article that these researchers published with this analysis, and I guess I'd like to read that. But then I noticed that this journal article was published way back in 2010, so I'd like to see, I think it said that the analysis was done on articles in PubMed between 2000 and 2010, and I'd be curious to see what it would look like, more recently, if there's been any changes. I know it's a shorter amount of time. It would only be, what, like 3 years or something, but I'm curious to see if there's any differences. So that's about it. I'm really passionate about this, obviously, and probably too passionate about it, but I found it interesting. So thank you. Have a good day. Bye.